The symbol that haunts you. There's a person who appears in your mind when you least expect it. They show up between moments of silence, in the middle of tasks, in dreams that feel too vivid to ignore. You've moved on, or so you thought, but they haven't moved out of your thoughts. It's not just a memory. It's a presence. And no matter how much time has passed, how many distractions you've built, they return. Again and again. Like a ghost, but more intimate. You don't understand why. You've tried to let go. You've tried to reason with yourself. But logic doesn't help. They still haunt you. And the haunting feels personal. As if there's a hidden meaning behind it. Carl Jung would say, there is. Jung didn't believe in random obsessions. He believed in symbols. To him, the human psyche speaks in metaphors. It doesn't send emails or texts. It sends people, images, archetypes. And when someone remains fixed in your thoughts, despite distance and time, it's because your unconscious mind is trying to get your attention. The person is not just a person. They are a symbol. Of what? That's the question. Maybe they represent a quality you deeply desire but never cultivated. Maybe they reflect a wound you never healed. Maybe they mirror a part of yourself you've rejected, feared, or forgotten. Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear, it returns. It waits. And it often returns wearing the face of someone we cannot ignore. That's why this isn't about love. It's about self-recognition. The longing isn't just for them. It's for wholeness, for meaning, for something unresolved within you. And the person becomes the mirror, not of the past, but of your inner world. The reason they won't leave your mind is not because they're still in your life. It's because they've become part of your story. A chapter your psyche isn't done reading. Yet. And if you want peace, it won't come from getting them. It will come from understanding why they appeared in the first place. Because maybe your mind isn't asking for them. Maybe it's asking for you. The voice of the unconscious. The conscious mind is where we live, or at least where we think we live. It's the voice you hear when you reason with yourself, when you plan your day, when you tell yourself to move on. But according to Carl Jung, the conscious mind is only the surface of who you are. Beneath it lies a vast, unseen world, the unconscious. This is the part of your psyche that stores everything you've forgotten, rejected, or denied. It's where your dreams come from. It's where your fears hide. And it's where your obsessions are born. Jung believed that when something is unresolved within us, an emotion, a memory, a desire, it doesn't just disappear. It becomes active below awareness. It influences your choices, your behavior, your attachments. And when the unconscious wants to speak, it doesn't knock politely. It intrudes through symbols, through repetition, through people who won't leave your thoughts. This is not about chance. This is communication. Your unconscious doesn't speak in words. It speaks in metaphors. And sometimes it chooses to speak through someone's face, someone's voice, someone you cannot stop thinking about. That person becomes a vessel for the message. You may think it's about them, but it's not. It's about what they represent. And what they represent is something you haven't yet seen in yourself. Maybe you're not even ready to see it. So the unconscious keeps trying. It replays the thoughts. It triggers the dreams. It brings their name back into your mind like a whisper. Not because you're weak, not because you're stuck, but because something deep inside you is asking to be acknowledged. And until you listen, it won't go away. This is the voice of the unconscious. It's quiet but persistent. It's mysterious but precise. And it always points inward. When someone lives in your mind rent-free, they are not there to torment you. They are there to wake you up. Not to the past. Not to the person. But to a part of yourself you've been living without. Projection, the inner world disguised. Not everything you see is real. At least not in the way you think. One of Jung's most profound insights was this. Much of what we perceive in others is actually a reflection of ourselves. He called it projection. Projection is not something we do deliberately. It happens beneath awareness. You meet someone and they seem magnetic. You feel drawn to them in ways you can't explain. Or maybe you feel repelled, uneasy, triggered. Either way, the emotional intensity is real, but the source might not be. Because often, what we think we see in another person is actually something from within us. A desire, a fear, a memory, a wound. And the stronger the emotion, the more likely it is that projection is at play. When you can't stop thinking about someone, it may be because they've become the screen onto which your unconscious is playing a forgotten story. Maybe they represent the love you never received. Maybe their silence echoes the abandonment you felt long ago. Maybe their confidence stirs a part of you that feels small, unheard, unseen. Whatever it is, they have triggered something personal, something buried. And your mind latches on. Not because they are the answer, but because they carry the symbol. This is why certain people ignite a fire in you while others barely register. Your unconscious is selective. It doesn't project onto everyone. It chooses those who mirror what you most need to face. And until you recognize this mechanism, you'll believe the emotion is about them. You'll think they're the key, the missing piece, the one who completes the puzzle. But they're not. They're just holding the mirror. And once you see that, something powerful happens. The obsession starts to unravel. Not because they've changed, but because your understanding has. You stop chasing the reflection and start seeking the source. And the source has always been you. Jung didn't teach us to suppress projection. He taught us to observe it. Because in every projection lies a clue to what you need, what you fear, what you've lost. The person in your mind is not your destiny. They are your map, Anima and Animus within. Jung believed that every human being carries within them a hidden counterpart, an unconscious image of the opposite sex that influences how we perceive others and how we relate to them. He called this inner figure the Anima in men and the Animus in women. These aren't just personality traits. They're powerful archetypes, blueprints that live in the unconscious. Over time, through culture, personal experience, and family dynamics, we build an internal image of the masculine or feminine. And this image doesn't just sit quietly. It reaches out. It colors our attractions, our longings, our emotional bonds. When you feel magnetically pulled towards someone, when their presence feels inexplicably meaningful, it may be because they reflect your anima or animus. Not who they truly are, but who your psyche imagines them to be. This is why you can feel deeply connected to someone you barely know. It's not about history. It's about projection again. But this time, the projection is archetypal. A man may see a woman and feel that she embodies mystery, grace, emotional depth, not because she said or did anything, but because his anima has found a face. A woman may feel drawn to a man who radiates certainty, strength, or intellectual dominance. But again, what she sees may be less about him and more about the animus within her. These unconscious forces are ancient. They do not play by the rules of logic. They stir us at the soul level. And the danger lies in mistaking the symbol for the source. Falling in love with your own anima or animus without realizing it can lead to obsession, disappointment, even despair. Because no real person can live up to the weight of your inner archetype. And when the illusion breaks, the pain cuts deep. But there is another path. When you recognize the anima or animus at play, you begin to reclaim the qualities they represent. The emotional depth, the intuitive power, the courage, the intellect, the balance. The goal is not to find these traits in someone else. It's to awaken them within yourself. And when you do, the person who once haunted your thoughts becomes something else, not a fantasy, not a fixation, but a teacher. One who showed you what was sleeping inside you all along. The shadow wears their face. There's a part of you that you don't show the world. Not because it's evil, but because at some point someone told you it wasn't acceptable. You buried it. You denied it. You built a life without it. Jung called this the shadow, the hidden self, made up of everything you've rejected in order to be loved, accepted, or safe. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. And it speaks through discomfort, through projection, through patterns you can't escape. Sometimes, it speaks through a person you can't forget. The one who triggers you. The one who stirs something raw. The one who lives in your mind with unsettling intensity. They may not be your soulmate. They may not even be healthy for you. But they reflect a part of you that demands to be seen. That's why it's not easy to simply move on. Because they wear your shadow's face. Maybe they express emotions you've never allowed yourself to feel: rage, desire, ambition, vulnerability. Maybe they act out the parts of life you've judged, feared, or repressed. And your reaction to them, whether it's obsession or aversion, is your shadow trying to get your attention. This is not about morality. The shadow isn't bad. It's just unconscious. And anything unconscious has power over you, until you bring it into the light. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When someone won't leave your thoughts, ask yourself, what part of me do they represent? What have I disowned that they seem to embody? Because that's the real obsession. Not them, but the part of you that's been waiting to return. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your missing piece. And when you stop fighting it, when you allow yourself to meet it with compassion, something profound happens. The person who once haunted you fades, not because you pushed them out, but because their role is complete. They served their purpose. They brought the shadow to light. Emotional loops and the need for completion. The mind doesn't let go until the story ends. That's the nature of emotional loops. They're not simply about memory. They're about unfinished business. When an experience ends abruptly, without resolution, the psyche doesn't know where to place it. So it holds on. It replays the details. It magnifies what was left unsaid. It brings back the same person again and again, not to torture you, but to complete the narrative. Jung understood that our need for closure is not weakness, it's structure. The psyche is always seeking wholeness. And wholeness requires understanding. That's why people who ghost us, who leave without explanation, or who were never truly ours in the first place can haunt us the most. It's not about love. It's about coherence. The unconscious can't file away an experience that feels open-ended. So it circles back. Again. And again. This is how emotional loops are formed, through neural pathways tied to strong emotions. Each thought, each memory, each imagined scenario strengthens the loop. And the longer the loop remains unbroken, the deeper it embeds into your mental world. But here's what makes it so difficult to break. We often mistake the loop for longing. We think the repetition means importance, that the person must be our destiny, our mirror soul, our only chance. But what if they're not? What if the loop isn't calling you back to them, but forward to yourself? What if your mind is searching not for reunion, but for meaning? Jung believed that the only way out of these loops is inward, toward reflection, toward integration, toward symbolic closure. Because the person is not the resolution. They're the placeholder for what's unresolved. And once you begin to ask the deeper questions, not why did they leave, but what did their leaving awaken in me, you begin to reclaim your power. The loop doesn't break because the other person returns. It breaks because you no longer need them to. Because you've found the ending inside yourself. Synchronicity or psychology, you keep seeing their name. A song plays that reminds you of them. You dream about them, and the next day, they reach out. It feels like the universe is trying to tell you something, as if the connection transcends space and time. And maybe it does. But not in the way you think. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that has no causal explanation, yet feels profoundly connected to your inner world. It's when the external mirrors the internal, not through logic, but through symbol. You think it's fate. Jung thought it was the unconscious making itself visible. Because when something inside you demands attention, when a wound is bleeding, or a truth is ready to emerge, the psyche doesn't just whisper. It creates patterns, coincidences, echoes, not to confuse you, but to wake you up. And the person who keeps showing up in your life or in your mind is part of that wake-up call. You may believe they're your soulmate. That destiny is pulling you together. But Jung would ask, what are they here to teach you? What part of your inner world are they activating? Synchronicity is not always about union. Sometimes it's about recognition. The person doesn't return to complete the story. They return to reflect what you've ignored. Your longing, your loneliness, your unfinished growth. The mind is a master of symbols. And when we're not listening, it speaks louder. Through dreams, through emotion, through the world around us. This is why certain connections feel spiritual. Not because the universe is playing matchmaker, but because your unconscious is calling you home. Not to them, but to yourself. And once you understand this, the power shifts. You stop waiting for signs. You stop chasing validation, because you realize the signs were never about them. They were about your readiness to evolve. Your mind has always known what you need. And sometimes, what you need most is not the person, but the part of you they brought to life. We're taught that closure comes from conversations, from final words, from mutual understanding. But Jung offered a deeper truth, one that few are ready to hear. Closure isn't something another person gives you. It's something you create within yourself. Because the wound didn't begin with their silence. It began with your need to be chosen, validated, understood. And when they walked away, that need was left open, raw. So the mind keeps spinning, looking for the missing piece, the apology that never came, the explanation that never arrived. But what if you don't need it? What if waiting for closure outside of yourself is the very thing keeping you stuck? Jung believed that symbolic acts have the power to speak to the unconscious. A letter never sent. A ritual of release. A moment of reflection beneath a sky that doesn't judge. These gestures bypass logic and touch something deeper. They signal to your inner world that you're ready to move forward. Not because you got all the answers, but because you stopped needing them. The person who lingers in your thoughts may never return. They may never explain. And that has to be okay. Because their role in your story was never about resolution. It was about revelation. They showed you your hunger, your hurt, your hope. They revealed where the light hadn't yet touched. And now, the work is yours. To bring light into that space. To hold yourself where they couldn't. To become the source of the closure you've been seeking. This is the moment you stop reaching out and start reaching in. Not to forget, but to understand. Not to erase the past, but to reclaim the present. Because closure isn't about endings. It's about integration. It's not a door slammed shut. It's a room you finally walk out of on your own terms. And when you do, you'll realize something powerful. You were never waiting for them. You were waiting for you. Closure comes from within. We're taught that closure comes from conversations, from final words, from mutual understanding. But Jung offered a deeper truth, one that few are ready to hear. Closure isn't something another person gives you. It's something you create within yourself. Because the wound didn't begin with their silence. It began with your need to be chosen, validated, understood. And when they walked away, that need was left open, raw. So the mind keeps spinning, looking for the missing piece, the apology that never came, the explanation that never arrived. But what if you don't need it? What if waiting for closure outside of yourself is the very thing keeping you stuck? Jung believed that symbolic acts have the power to speak to the unconscious. A letter never sent. A ritual of release. A moment of reflection beneath a sky that doesn't judge. These gestures bypass logic and touch something deeper. They signal to your inner world that you're ready to move forward. Not because you got all the answers, but because you stopped needing them. The person who lingers in your thoughts may never return. They may never explain. And that has to be okay. Because their role in your story was never about resolution. It was about revelation. They showed you your hunger, your hurt, your hope. They revealed where the light hadn't yet touched. And now the work is yours. To bring light into that space. To hold yourself where they couldn't. To become the source of the closure you've been seeking. This is the moment you stop reaching out and start reaching in. Not to forget, but to understand. Not to erase the past, but to reclaim the present. Because closure isn't about endings. It's about integration. It's not a door slammed shut. It's a room you finally walk out of on your own terms. And when you do, you'll realize something powerful. You were never waiting for them. You were waiting for you. Individuation, the journey back to wholeness. The mind doesn't want perfection. It wants wholeness. That was Jung's deepest belief. That beneath all our obsessions, projections, and longings lies a single desire to become whole. Not flawless. Not healed in the eyes of others. But integrated. To bring back every part of ourselves we've lost, abandoned, or exiled. And this is the real reason someone stays on your mind. They're not just a memory. They're a messenger. They carry something you left behind. A forgotten quality. A disowned truth. A fragment of your soul that never stopped knocking. The path to wholeness is called individuation. It is the process of becoming your fullest self, not by adding more, but by reclaiming what was lost. Every fixation, every emotional loop, every haunting thought is a clue. The person you can't stop thinking about isn't the destination. They're the doorway. They lead you inward, to where the child still waits to be seen, to where the shadow still longs to be loved, to where the inner masculine or feminine is still aching for balance. Individuation is not a concept. It's a lived transformation. It asks you to stop chasing the symbol and start listening to what it symbolizes. It asks you to hold space for your contradiction, to welcome the discomfort, to walk through the fire of insight. Because only through facing the inner conflict can you discover the hidden harmony. And once you begin this journey, the obsession softens. The grip loosens. Not because the person changed, but because you did. You no longer need them to hold the mirror. You've learned to face yourself. And in doing so, you begin to feel a strange, unfamiliar peace. A quiet completeness. As if the thing you've been searching for in them was never outside you to begin with. It was always waiting. Beneath the surface. Within. What you seek was always within you. All this time, you thought it was about them. The way they smiled. The words they never said. The silence they left behind. You believed if they came back, the ache would end. That their presence would heal the wound they caused. But Jung invites us to look deeper. To ask a more unsettling question. What if they were never the cure? What if they were just the trigger? The invitation? The symbol? And what if the pain wasn't a punishment, but a passage, a way back to yourself? Every projection you cast, every dream they entered, every quiet moment when their face returned was a message. Not from the universe, but from within, telling you what you still long for, what you still fear, what you still need to integrate. And the moment you stop resisting, the truth begins to emerge. The love you craved in them, it's yours to give. The confidence you admired in them, it's waiting to be awakened. The freedom you thought they embodied, it was buried beneath your own fear. And now it rises. Because now you see that they were never holding your missing piece. They were holding a mirror. And in that reflection, you didn't find them. You found the forgotten version of you, the one who is no longer waiting, the one who is no longer chasing, the one who knows what you seek was always within you. And that is when the thoughts stop chasing you, not because you forced them away, but because you no longer need to follow. You've arrived. Home. If this journey spoke to something deep within you, let it continue. Take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this reflection resonated most? Your story might be the mirror someone else needs. And if you found value here, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. There's so much more to uncover on the path back to wholeness. Until then, stay curious, stay courageous, and above all, stay connected to yourself.